G'day, I'm Greg and welcome to the shed. Well, I'm in town for 3 days. I was just looking at the sunset. I'm in town for 3 days and I've acquired 3 more projects. One of them's not that big. The second one hopefully isn't big at all. And the third one, which I'm leaning on, with a bit of luck, there won't be too much in that either. So yeah, here's hoping. But before we get too carried away and I'll show you everything, a bit of a shout out to the man who put me onto this gear, JB from Oz. Have a look at his channel. He's not that far away from me. In fact, he and his father bought my original Douglas Shaper. There's actually a couple of short videos of that Shaper in action on his channel. So yeah, have a look at that. A couple of really nice people, absolutely genuine people. Got all the time in the world for them. But yeah, anyway, it's only going to be a short video because I'm here for 3 days and this is day 2. And tomorrow is drug tests and medicals and all the stuff that goes with that, with heading out to a new site. So tomorrow's a lost cause as far as getting in the shed goes. A fair bit's been happening in here. There's a lot of insulation going on in, a lot of reorganisation. It's starting to look a bit like a shed. It's starting to. It looks more like a disgusting mess at the moment than it does a shed, but yeah, it's getting there. So I'll turn you off, set you up in a different position, and then what we'll do is we'll have a look at some of the stuff that I've got. So this is today's large acquisition, a 1200mm by 3mm sheet metal guillotine. A hands on a couple of new knives that came with it. So they're a bit rusty, they need a bit of cleaning up, but they're as sharp as even now on the edges. And I suspect, looking at it, that it's still actually got the original knives in it. I don't think it's actually done a day's work. Or say day's work, it hasn't done a week's work. Couple of things this here, we'll have a closer look at it. That's the safety. There's an on-off up here. And a start and emergency stop. There's an issue with the foot pedal, which we'll look at later on. These two here go on the back, along with a deflector plate, which I had to take off so that I could move it. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll take you off the stand. I'll give you a bit of a look around, and hopefully there's enough charge that we've got enough battery to do that with. So we've got you in freehand mode, and we've got a bit of backlight here, which means that there'll be a bit of shadow. So as you can see, 3mm by 1200, not made in Australia. I suspect that there's the serial number, and this here, I think that's 93. Oops, sorry guys and girls, that's 93 and this is 5, so I think it's made 5th of 93. I think that's the date of production. Now, all of this here, pretty normal for a lot of this Chinese stuff. Their casting wasn't special. There was lots of inclusions in that in it, so it had some cosmetic works. That was probably a good way of putting it. It's quite common. But interestingly enough, when you look at the surface here, you won't complain about it at all. So obviously they've machined a fair bit off it. Or obviously we'd make the assumption they've machined a fair bit off it. Get back. This here is actually the cover off the side here. There's the drive mechanism under there, and there's a couple of things when we get in here. Oh, can't quite see what's coming on the other side. There we go. This here, this wedge is actually meant to be jammed down in here, so when you put your foot on it, it drives it back. So the linkage that is on the other side, which you can just see there in the background, is bent. Well, that's what I'm making the assumption it is. So that's bent. So we've got to fix that up. These guards are bent. Some of this damage is old. Some of it is a lot newer, because if you saw where we had to get it out of, yeah, it was a challenge. Even by my standards, it was a challenge. We had to skull drag it over soft dirt. That's the lever I was playing with a minute ago. That gives us safety on the treadle. Treadles on both sides. There's a return spring there, which probably needs a bit of an adjustment. As you can see, there's a few grease caps. There's 1, 2. There's 3 grease caps. That grease cap's not there on this side because it's actually on the outside. There's 2 grease caps out here. There's one there, and there's, hopefully you can see it, there we go, there's the other one. And I'm looking because, so we've got, there's the one in the back, yeah, which we've already seen. So what this does is this rod rotates, and it gives you an eccentric and a cam, and it comes up through this connecting rod, and I'm gonna get it in shot. This here slides up and down, and this is one knife bar, and this is the bottom. Where's my hand? Somewhere here. There we go. That's the bottom edge of the top knife bar. So when we look at these screws, they certainly don't look like they've ever been out. That looks like factory to me. And we've got some adjustments here. Adjusting bolts and locking bolts. This is where those arms go on. We bolt the arms on. They come back at an angle, and then what happens is we put the flat plate over it to stop metal dropping down onto the through shaft. Now, yes, you can see an electric motor there, but what happens is this shaft is driven off the big gear there. The big gear is driven by the little gear, which is on this front shaft, which is driven by the big V-belt pulley, which is driven by the little V-belt pulley. And there's 3 belts in there. I've got my hand in here at the moment, it's feeling it. There's 3 bolts, and don't worry, it's not plugged in. See? It's not plugged in. So, yeah. Just looking at the plate on the motor, trying to see how many horsepower we got here. Might be easier if I looked at it the right way up. It'd be more comfortable if I don't smack me back on the support that's coming out. I have to look a bit closer, but I think it's 2.2 kilowatts, yeah. There we go, that looks like kilowatts there at my thumbnail. And 2.2 kilowatts. So, there is a brake. It appears to be a brake band down there, which I'm assuming is released when we operate the, yeah, I know what it'll do. It'll work, it'll rotate one way and then it'll lock up to stop the back run. Okay. Here is a lubrication chart telling you what to lube and when. That's on the end. Now if we look at the front here, we feed our piece of plate in under here. What happens is this whole assembly across here, this holds that one of these cutter bars, one of these knives, and it slides up and down in the blocks here. And notice we've got a grease cap here, and we have a hole with a broken off, the remnants of a grease cap there. There's a couple of those I've noticed, that, so I'll have to do something about fixing them. So what will happen is this will come down. These springs are tension springs, so they hold this down all the time, and it gets lifted up on these by these, comes up to the slot, and you set your clearance in here by adjusting that. So when this comes down, this clamp bar sits on your piece of plate, holds your piece of plate, and then it guillotines it off in the back afterwards. So it'll probably be a bit easier to see. We'll just might put you back on the stand. Flip that over so I can see what you're looking at. Okay, hopefully this will make sense. So what happens is, these springs hold this bar down all the time. There's one on each end, and you can't see either of them because they're both out of shot. So let's put one into shot. Okay. So there's one of these on each end, and they hold this clamp bar down all the time. Now, to set your clearance in under here, which is currently wedged on that because someone's bashed it in, you adjust this down onto this bolt and it will lift that up to give you clearance here. So you want to set these even so that it comes down and grabs your piece of sheet metal. Then what's going to happen is that this one of these knives is actually bolted to the back here, and that comes down and guillotines it off nicely. That's the theory. We've got a couple of adjustments here which I've got to have a good look at and see what they're for. I think they're just levelling adjustments to get it sorted side to side. Because this distance here and it's made on the other side, which you can't see because it's out of shot, and I'm in it, that they should be the same because the knife is set at an angle. You can just see the top of it here, and if we swing across, actually you can swing across and we have a look at the other side, it's actually quite a bit lower on this side. There'd be, yeah, easy 30 mil across there, maybe a bit more, maybe closer to 40. There's a couple of bolts up the front here. I don't know if you can see. No, they're just slightly out of shot. Yeah, there's a couple of these on either side. Incidentally, this has got some T-slots in it for setting stuff up on. So there's a little bit more that I need to do. And the other thing, another thing. What we have here, when we look on this side, we've got two bolts here in slotted holes. This is the same on both sides. We have a tension bolt here or pull bolt and a push bolt. So when you're setting your knife up, what you do is you push it with that one, pull it back with that one, get it all tight, and then you lock these down so that your knives rub nicely without actually biting in. So yeah, a little bit of work to do on it, not a lot. I probably won't get too carried away with fixing it up, and by that I mean I won't get too carried away with doing a total rebuild on it, certainly not initially, because what I'll do is I'll fix up the greasing issues, I'll fix up the clutch issue, I'll clean off the obvious issues with rust and scale and dirt and stuff where it shouldn't be, and I'll push a fair bit of grease through the, I was about to say bearings, but they're a plain bearing, they're a bush. So I'll push a fair bit of grease through there, a lot more than what it needs. And then I'll plug it in and start it up and run it. Because my gut feeling is it's done almost no work. And sometimes there's not a lot of point pulling something apart when it's almost brand new and just hasn't been used. So yeah, we'll get quite liberal with the lubrication on it. Apart from a bit of grease, we'll put a heap of WD-40 in there, or CRC, or whatever your favourite one is. It doesn't matter what you use. But we'll get quite generous with a bit of lubrication in there to wash the dirt out. We'll get carried away with a bit of oil as well, a bit of whey oil, and then we'll start pushing grease back into it. So yeah, I think that for what I paid for it, well, I paid probably not even scrap value for it, but I got a couple of toys thrown in. So let's have a look at the next toy. So this is the next toy, an AC/DC welder. On the trolley, rather interesting. 3-phase, same as the other one, and in Australia here we use 415 volts. That's our 3-phase, not 220 like the US. We run at 50 hertz, not 60. Now, input power, 16.5 amps, 10 horsepower motor. Now what these do is these run a motor and then they run an armature. This is a DC welder. You put AC in, you get DC out. It's rated 250 amps at 30% duty cycle. These are a pretty awesome bit of kit. These are a very awesome bit of kit. And I haven't used one of these since I was an apprentice. Adjustable from 40 volts through to 60 volts. If I can get it up over, I have to adjust the height of the knob there. It's sitting on the screw. Positive terminal on that side, negative on this side. At the moment it's set up for electrode positive, but we've got a little something here which some of you will get a bit of a surprise with. Just untangle this. This is pretty much straight off the back of the trailer, the back of the ute. Over on the trailer, behind the ute. So that's power in, and I'm dragging this out deliberately, guys and girls. Here's our earth lead, all tangled up, and I'm going to have to, you might have noticed, there's a bit of a hint here. There's the earth lead, there's the earth lead. Here we have the flow meter. Here we have a flow meter. Why do you have a flow meter on a stick welder? Someone's broken the end off it, so it doesn't go to the regulator. The regulator's been snapped off. And the reason is, it used to be a TIG welder. So they've been using it as a DC. So let's bring you in for a look. Zoom it in a bit. Okay, that is the negative work electrode, or the negative electrode. And so what happens is, We've got the gas regulator hose coming in. Actually, I'll zoom out a little bit more. The back of this here is actually set up for a gas bottle. I'll give you a bit more of a look at it. But what happens here, we take our flow meter, it goes to our gas bottle, which is out of sight. Just sit it there. So that goes to there. Then we come up here and we connect into here and we run off to our scratch start TIG handpiece. So what we're basically looking at here is the original TIG welder. Or more accurately, it was probably a heliarc, because it was probably they probably used helium with it. And the other zoom out, there's the gas bottle tray on the back of it. So on the back of the trolley, and here we go. So yeah, that's it. That's a lousy view, but what else do you expect? This one's probably no better. So there we go. The third one's only a set of feed roller racks for the for a bandsaw, or in my case it'll be the power hacksaw. So that's just sitting outside. There's not too much of interest in one of them. Other than the fact it needs a bit of work to tidy it up, clean it up, paint it up, and put it into use. Have to make some swing away legs for it because there's no legs on it, but it'll do the job, and I've got to get the height sorted and yada 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 yada. But I've got to get the bandsaw sorted. I've got to get the hacksaw sorted so that I can use, so that I've got a need for them. But yeah, look, again, thanks to JB from Oz. Go and have a look at his channel. Thanks to him for putting me onto these. I know what I better do. I better take you off the stand again, if I can. There we go. Let's give you a look down here. There's the voltage control. There's the current control. So this is negative, and there you can see the gas hose. Here we are, positive. At the moment, the positive is connected to the earthing electrode, so it's currently set up for DCEN, DC electrode negative. And see, it turns 3000 RPM. Here's something for you. It turns 3000 RPM in a counterclockwise direction as we view it. There's a Lincon Australia. We can't read this at the moment. We're quite interested to know what's there up here. But what that is that's actually, you'll be scratching to see it, but it's springs and brushes. That's actually a brush wire. I've got hold of it under my fingers. Actually, let's take the crash hat off and have a look. Just loosen these off a little bit, so you can see the screwdriver on the floor. I'll take that off as well. It's obviously going off before because we've got a spring washer on this one and haven't got one on that one, and there we go. What we have here is a lot of dust. And 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of brushes. Big commutator. That's how they make the DC. So This is what the top of it looks like. For those of you that have never seen inside one of these, really thick solid metal on these things. And up here we have a support, that's a support bush, and we expect to see the stuff spinning around. And it spins quite freely. Actually, which way does it say? It's a counterclockwise, so I'm spinning it in reverse. So that's the direction it's meant to spin. There's no noticeable free play up there. So we've got our springs, which I've said a few times now. This wiring all looks pretty good, but you've got to make sure that you haven't got these, that this doesn't touch the cap. We've got, that's brass. Looks like a BSPT taper there. It's the other side. Nothing obviously wrong. See the size of these leads. It actually feels alright. Insulation. These are actually the leads that will end up down at these terminals. I think. Actually, are they or aren't they? Yes, they will be. They'll have to be, because that's how you rectify AC current to DC. You need a commutator as opposed to a rotor. The reason this is called a commutator is, you see these bars? Each one of them will be making a positive on this side and a negative on the, actually it's the side's negative, sorry, where I'm standing. We'll be making negative on this side and positive on the other side, and when this bar gets the other side, it's positive. Now we can go through the technicalities of that, but we're not going to in this video. It gets a bit long, but that's the basics of it. All you need to really remember is that this side here, this whole structure here will be negative, and when we get round to the other side, because I'm walking around the back of the machine, this side here will be the positive side. So yeah, this will be interesting to fire it up and get it going. So now that I've made that mess and I've had one go at signing off, and I changed my mind and we've had a bit of a look here at this, I'll have another go at signing off, because I need to transfer this, publish it, get it online so you guys can all have a look at it. But yeah, for the third time, thank you very much to JB from Oz. Go and have a look at his channel. Thank you very much to those of you who watch and subscribe. A number of you have, well, I say a number of people have made comment on my What's in Your Box video, my nomination video. Thank you very much for your support. It's been greatly appreciated. There's certainly some other worthy candidates in the competition. Yeah, it's a great competition, and yeah, whoever wins it is worthy. There's no arguments at all about that. But thank you very much, and I'll make another video as soon as I can, and hopefully it will involve, I was about to say, hopefully it involves some work on machines, maybe some repairing machines, maybe some showing you how some machines work, maybe even some getting the V-block fixed. But at the moment, the shed is, to be fair, a bit of a disaster area. Behind that is my toolboxes. There's the shaper, which is inaccessible. There's the slaughter, which is buried. There's the mill. that's the Elliott mill, which is a bit of a challenge to get to. There's my motorbike. There's trolley sitting in the middle of the place. I'm halfway through putting insulation in. That's the light, which is getting in my eyes, not to mention yours. Over behind the press here is the lathe and the mill. My workbench. My old lathe, which is stashed up in the corner there, with the water bottle sitting on it and a bit of pipe and stuff resting on it. The ladder is there. Oh, the young bloke's bench, so he's got something to play with. And as you can see, I'm halfway through putting insulation in the place, and that wall's not insulated, and that one is pretty much insulated. But let's get the light out of your eyes. Let's get the light out of your eyes. Let's get me into shot. So there's a fair bit more to be done in here. As you can see, that wall's not insulated yet. I've got to do that. I was going to do that today, but excuse me. I was going to do that today, but getting the guillotine out should have been a 1 hour job, and 4 hours later I had it out of where it was meant to be, or where it was meant to be, where it was to where I needed to get. We needed to get it to, so I could get a forklift on. It took me 4 hours to go 20 metres. Yeah, it was. That's not bad. 5 metres an hour. It was a bit of a challenge, and the problem is that all that was there wasn't a machine or a cupboard or a drawer or anything in the way. It was just the ground conditions. And we skull dragged it 20 metres. We jacked it, we packed it, we skull dragged it. The ground was too soft to put anything down on, so yeah, it was a challenge. So yeah, all right. I'll see you next video. Thank you very much.